You have a very nice fades, my lad. It's very nice how they stepped it.
So, welcome back to the show, everybody. We have our second guest today, Mrs. Miranda Govea.
Hola.
Ooh, ooh. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about culture because I think she has a very interesting perspective on it. How would you describe yourself, like, from an ethnic standpoint?
I always say I'm half Mexican and half Chicagoan is usually what I say. My mom's white, but I don't really know like she doesn't know where her descendants come from. Like,
and that's something that I can also relate to because I'm just kind of like black and American. I don't really know where my family history traces back to either per se, but you do know as far as the Mexican side where that's from.
Yeah, I actually saw like the hut where my father was born in Mexico. So we've like been there where my grandmother met my grandfather, my abuelito. Definitely know exactly what small little pueblito he's from, like what little hut he was from, and then what city they migrated from there. And majority of my family's still there, so.
I think that's dope. And then Angel has another perspective on it. You kind of know exactly where you're from. Like your parents are first generation, correct?
Shout out Calamba Laguna. Yes, both my parents are Filipino.
So I just thought it would be cool to have a conversation about what it means to be American because growing up I always kind of gravitated towards people that were from other places because I thought it was cool that like they could speak a different language or that they had a place that they could go to. Like you said, you know where your father was born at, and like you had this place where everybody looks like you and everybody understands the food you eat and like has the same passion for the same kind of culture. Though being American is cool, and I think if I was in another country I would probably be able to relate to that. I think it's also hard to identify with being American as like an aesthetic because it's so many different things going on. When I went to Japan I thought it was cool that I didn't really see like racism there, and then it dawned on me like everybody's Japanese, so like why would they be racist? Have you been to the Philippines before? Mm-hmm. Do they have like a color divide there?
I feel like in the Philippines it's a little bit different as far as what like levels of I guess discrimination based off of what you look like. Everybody wants to be lighter, so it's like light skin versus dark skin. Like that was the battle that I saw. But other than that, it's mostly Filipinos, you know, and then a lot of European travelers. But that was also, I don't know what it's like now. I can't speak on it. I haven't been there in a hot minute.
I remember when you first told me that you were Mexican, I was like, I've never seen a Mexican person that looks like you. But you were like, actually, there's a lot that look like me. And you said like Mexican people know that you're Mexican when they see you.
People who are Hispanic, when they look at me, they identify me to be Hispanic, and I don't know if it's the eyebrows. I don't know. Honestly, I'm like, there's something about my face. Maybe it's the roundness, the weird features. I don't know, but especially since I moved to California, like I have been approached in grocery stores on more than one occasion in Spanish, and I'll respond out of respect, but it's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah.
Here, but when I go to Mexico, I mean, it's the same thing. It's a güera, that's like white girl, but there are tons of güeras in Mexico, you know what I mean? There are so many people in Mexico who have light eyes and have light features. My green eyes come from my Mexican dad because he's got green eyes. It's a Spaniard that came down there. And then my uncle, who's full Mexican, has blue eyes. You know what I mean? Wow. My grandfather has hazel eyes. Everybody has lighter features on that side. And so, yeah, and Mexicans specifically, I don't know about other Hispanic cultures, but definitely Mexicans will look at me and they know that I'm of that descent. Like, where are you from in Mexico? Or where are you from? Mexico? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, shit.
I just think that that's cool because I get the same question a lot of the time. People be like, where are you from? And I'm like, Chicago? I don't know. And they're like, no, but like, where are you from? And I'm like, literally, I have no idea.
It's funny because a lot of my family thinks Tony is half Filipino. But every single one of my family is like, so is Tony, what side is Filipino? Like, actually, neither side. Neither side is Filipino, actually.
And that's another thing too, depending on who I'm around, like they'll like I'm this ambiguous thing to them because I've been called literally everything.
I'm sure.
Like,
I'm sure.
I remember when I was a kid, I was in a store one time, and this Indian man who owned the store walked up to me and was like, You like what's in here? It was like a clothing store. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And he was like, you Indian? And I was like, no.
All offended? Are you all offended?
I was like 10. I was like, no, what? And he was like, come on. And I was like, no, I'm not Indian. And I left because I was like, what are you talking about? And then as I got older, people would start calling me Dominican all the time. Because I started hanging out with like more Hispanic people. And they'd be like, oh, you're Dominican, right? And I'm like, no. And I didn't even know what Dominicans look like. And then the first time I went to New York, I was staying in the Bronx. And I was like, whoa, I've never seen so many people in one place that look like me.
you.
Like, it's crazy. And they were like, yeah, they're Dominican.
And they're
I was like, holy shit.
I look Dominican.
I think it's kind of cool. Like, I can kind of go anywhere and like fit in, I guess.
Find a family member here and there everywhere.
Yeah. It's like been weird for me because, like I said, I gravitate towards just culture in general. And like, even white cultures, like somebody can be like, I'm Irish, and they can tell you some stuff about being Irish, or like Italian people talk about like their grandma's cooking.
No, totally.
And like
Right.
they know how to cook some stuff. I have that to a degree. Like my grandparents could throw down on some soul food. My granddad's catfish is like legendary, but it's not like that originated from somewhere else. It's like from here. It's not as cool to,
But that's
to
still
me, but
culture,
it's cool.
though.
Yeah, it's culture. But I think that it's just different when you can go to a place where like everybody looks like you.
I have this story of my grade school growing up. It was all white, and then it was me. It was no harm, but it really made me think, like, what? I was sitting with a lot of like my girlfriends who are all white, and they were like, yeah, it's really cool, Angel, because like when we look at you, it's like we just see like one of us. And I was like, and I know that it was on like an acceptance thing, which is dope. And honestly, like, I loved all my friends, in especially during that era. They were awesome, supportive, and I never felt any judgment. But it was one of those things where I was floating in this ambiguous, that's cool that they accept me and that I fit in. But, like, I'm not just one of you. Like, don't look anything like you guys. You know what I mean? And I'm very thankful to my parents who had a lot of Filipinos who were their peers who had kids that were my age, because every time we'd have family parties, I saw them who they looked like me. I can relate to them. You know, shout out to GPFP.
Do you ever feel like as your schoolmates were like, oh, we see you when we look at, or we see ourselves when we look at you, do you feel like it was like you weren't casted anymore? Does that make sense? Do you ever feel like you were casted as like the Filipino one, or casted as the brown girl, or casted?
Well, no, I mean, because I feel like they didn't even see color with me, you know what I mean? Okay. Which is cool. Like, I don't want people to think that I'm coming at them for this. Yeah. It's just, it made me realize, whoa, did I just lose my culture? Because I feel like that is a struggle that a lot of, you know, like first generation have. It's like we are born here and we adapt to this culture, but then we don't want to lose our other side of our culture. So this is something that I experienced, which I'm curious to see if this is what you experience when you're in Mexico or whatever. But if I'm around Filipinos, I never feel Filipino enough. And then out here, I'm never American enough. So I'm always like in this weird middle ground. Yeah. Can you relate to that? Because you're half. So it's like, how does that work with that?
No, absolutely. So I'd like to think of myself, I'm really adaptable as a person in general.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I agree with going to Mexico. There are just certain things that, like, even certain humors that, like, I just can't catch on with. And, like, they'll be like, oh, you know los palabras de calle. So you know, like, the words of the street. Like, I don't know grammatically correct Spanish either.
Totally.
I'm not Spanish enough then when I am in Mexico. You know what I mean? I'm not Mexican enough when I'm there. Yeah. They see how I am, though, and they see that it is a part of me, but I'm still just not enough. And it's never like an unaccepted, you know, thing.
No, totally, but it is the language thing that you're saying, because the moment, I could try so hard to put on the accent and whatever, the moment I open my mouth, like, you ain't from here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then but then on like the other side, on the American side of things, I feel like it was when I went to Colombia, when I went to college, is when I realized, that's why I asked about the casting, because I realized I bumped into a kid and we ended up being friends, and he's like, oh, you're going to be my spicy Latina friend. And I was like, what?
Oh.
Like... And then, like, even some of my...
Kind of like the token black guy.
You know, I just was like... So it was kind of weird to me because my whole life growing up in Elgin, like, no one's ever like, oh, you're the spicy Latina. Because there are so many spicy Latinas. You know what I mean? So it was, like, really weird to hear that from him. And I was just like, okay. And then, like, as I started getting older, I feel like some of my friends are like, oh, mommy to me. Like, my white friends. And I'm like, you guys are cute. But, like, you're doing it to me because I... You know what I mean? So it's definitely different. Like I said, I'm adaptable, but...
Do you feel that you seek out trying to connect more with your culture?
I definitely I just do. And I don't mean to say it's not in the white or the American culture by any means. I'm not trying to do it. There's not a division here. Mm-hmm. But there is a certain command of respect that I feel like has come from being first generation. Sometimes it's not aligned with the American culture. It just isn't. And even my stepdad, who was very much involved in my life, he also was Mexican. And same thing, you know what I mean? There's just a level of respect. And I think that there is definitely a difference in the American culture as there is to, like, the Mexican culture. And so when I do meet Mexicans, or Mexican women specifically, identify with them, immediately, whether it's about food or whether it's about the way that we try to find resolutions for things, because we're not we need help, you know what I mean? We're a solve it, figure it out, get through it type of person, you know what I mean?
Totally. That's funny that you said food, because growing up, that was my first realization that I was different from everybody else, was food. Because I have half Mexican family as well. And when we throw parties, there is a ton of food. And I like...
That's why I hung out with other people.
Just a ton of food. Multiple dishes. They never ran out. And it was always, take some home. But when I would go to family parties of my American friends, it'd be like pizza and pop and a cake. And so I would go to these parties, and my mom like, oh, how was it? I'm like, Mom, you know, they only had one thing to eat. And I didn't realize, and it was just a learning experience for me, because I'm learning different things, because I'm taking what I've learned in my family life, and then I'm being thrown into an environment with all these people from different cultures, and it's all different to me. So I wasn't used to just one slice of pizza, and that was like foreign to me.
When you're going through those type of experiences, is it something that it makes you want to assimilate to, or is it something you want to bring everybody else, like, to where you're at, like, when you kind of experience those differences?
Oh no, I'm bringing people.
Me too. that aspect is a celebratory aspect in my eyes, you know Absolutely. What I mean? Like, sitting down, even with just your immediate family, your mom, your dad, your siblings, that is celebratory. It's the one time you do it all day at dinner time, you know what I mean?
Yes,
so it's like,
that's cool. So we ate dinner every day with each other.
Absolutely. So that's another thing. My stepdad, like, literally, he cooked for us every dinner. And then when I would go to my papi's house, it was every other weekend. That fool. My papi cooked for us too. And so, like, that's who I watched cooking, was the two of them. And then when I would go to Mexico, obviously all my aunts and my abuelita. But it's funny because the difference here, and literally, like, my mom would always be like, oh, I can always just live off beans and tortillas. And she's white. And she'd be like, I can live off beans or tortillas. But both of, like, the male influences, the Mexican male influences in my life, it's like, they always provided so much food, so much spices, so much, like, variety. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's just, I can't just live off beans and rice. You know what I mean? I need more flavor. Like,
yeah, definitely.
That's the thing I noticed too, like, in other cultures in general, that, like, food plays a really huge role in just, like, the identifying with them.
It personalizes the experience.
No, and absolutely. And if you came to my house, my parents are going to try to feed you. If I take you to any of my titas or titos' houses, they're feeding you all the time. And don't you ever say no.
Like, my best friends from Argentina, like, every time I would go there, it was not even a question of, are you eating or not? It was just like, what are you eating? Like, oh, I already ate. I didn't ask you that. I said, what do you want to eat? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a love thing, you know? And I feel like ethnic foods, especially being from here, you kind of get spoiled because, like, you just get used to having like all these options and stuff. So the foods itself, one, aren't really that authentic necessarily because they're not being made by somebody's grandma or, like, you know what I'm saying? Somebody's dad. It's just like a thing to do.
So are you bilingual?
I would say I definitely can get away with speaking like and understanding. But no, as far as reading and writing, not at all. And first grade actually reminds me of a story. In first grade, Miss Michael, I'm gonna put you on blast.
Wow.
There were 3 different first grade classes, and 2 were English and 1 was bilingual. And she knew I was half Mexican. She knew that my dad was from San Luis Potosí. She knew that like I was first generation. She also didn't see me speak Spanish. But also like I'm in first grade. I have never been in a school like with, you know what I mean? Like I was in American class. That's all. I was in English speaking class. And she pointed me out in front of everybody in front of those 3 classes and was like, "You're going to speak Spanish today." And I was like, "What?" Like, I'm in first grade, 6 years old. Like, what? She's like, "You're going to speak Spanish today." I'm like, what? Why? Why me? Why not? You know what I mean? Out of everybody, to be singled out and then to be told I'm going to do something that, as a 6-year-old, I'm not comfortable doing in front of all these English-speaking people. And she just kind of shunned me, like, you should know better, you should know you should know Spanish just as well as you know English, and kind of went in on me about it. And I remember just thinking, like, what the
Did she speak? Was she Hispanic?
She was white.
But she was bilingual?
And she knew Spanish.
So she was, like, language shaming you?
It was so... And I was so confused because I looked at her and I'm like, she's white. Her last name is Miss Michael. Like, I'm trying to, like, I'm trying to understand because my abuelita growing up my whole life would be like, you need to speak Spanish. You need to speak Spanish. I understood why she wanted me to. She was my abuelita. That's my grandmother. But, like, this woman, I didn't understand why she was asking that of me. Come to turn out, later on in life, I understand why my mom stopped doing the whole English and Spanish thing, and it's because my brother was bilingual when he was a kid, and all he knew was Spanish actually for the longest time, and he ended up having an ear infection, and so it prohibited him to understand like everything that was coming. So they're like, you need to choose one language. It's either English or Spanish. You know what I mean? Otherwise, he was going to start being held back in classes. So they had to go with the English realm.
Now you're taking me back into school and my experience with language. So in my home, my parents, they're bilingual, but they spoke a lot of Tagalog with us growing up. So even though we were born here, growing up, if you watch certain home videos, you can kind of hear like an accent coming from me, and it's like, whoa, you're from here. Why do you have an accent? But it wasn't until I was in elementary school, we read out loud in class, and I'll never forget the word. And it was because I was so used to how to say this specific word within my family's home. So they would always say comfortable instead of comfortable. So I'm reading, I don't know, Joe was comfortable in his bed. And I just remember somebody being like, what? And then started just cracking up. And I was like, just shrunk like real small.
That's what it looks like when you look at the word though.
I know. And then so then I remember I was so embarrassed that I was angry like at my parents. I'm like, why did you teach me this word? Everybody's laughing at me. Why did you teach it to me like this and blah, blah, blah. So that was definitely one of the language struggles that I had growing up. But then as I got older, obviously I don't have an accent right now. It probably comes out a little when I'm on the phone with my parents. Naturally, it's the weirdest thing. But I've had people say like, why are you saying it like that? I'm like, I don't know. But I'm very protective of anybody trying to come at my mom and my dad for how they speak. They're both bilingual, like I said. They can speak English. They understand English. They can write English. They know the language. But sometimes, like, if we were going through a drive-through or something, they might not hear or understand fully what my dad is saying. He'll ask or order for a large Sprite, and they'll give him a large fry, you know? And then there was one time I remember we were standing in line, and my dad was trying to order something, and I can kind of tell, like, that the people behind the counter were kind of laughing, and I just remember my face getting beet red, like, Lord Jesus, give me the strength not to mouth off right now, because I was so upset with that. Because seeing my parents, like, be able to adapt to this culture and how hard they worked to get here, I was super protective of anybody coming at that. And to me, just making fun of their language, it was so up to me, and I wasn't gonna have, not around me, not around my watch.
No, too many sacrifices. You know what I mean?
No.
I definitely agree with that. It's like all the sacrifices. It's enough work to get here and then enough to stay here, but then everything that you've sacrificed to even make the plan even. Like,
exactly.
And I thought about that too, like going to other countries being like, can I live here? In Japan, I'm not like, just to go back to that, like when I was there, we were like, man, it's so clean here. Everybody's so nice. Like the food's so good. Like we could just stay here. And then by the third week, it was like, I'm really tired of not being able to read anything and like nobody understanding me. And then it was like, I've only been here for 3 weeks and I'm already like worn out and like don't think I could do it. And so it kind of gives you that other perspective of what that's like to come here. And not only that, but like here it's even more intimidating because it's not just one other culture that you're like up against. You're up against like everything.
well, and two, it's like sometimes it's not a choice.
That too.
People think like people are migrating here because they want to come to America, and it's like no, they literally are. It's for a bigger reason. It's for a bigger purpose.
It's sometimes life and death.
You know, exactly.
And then to like land here, and it's like being on another planet because you're not familiar with anything. Nobody looks like you.
That's the perspective that traveling
teaches
gives
you, man.
And a lot of people, they always say leave your psychic container so that you can actually learn and grow. And when you go and you travel out of places that you've grown up, even just out of the state. Like I know so many people that have literally not left Illinois. Yeah. And I'm like, wow. You really need to, because it just opens up your mind to so many other things. You know what I mean?
And not only that, but like to go to other places and see other people that don't look like you in power of doing other important things in their community or in their state or in their country. It's like you'll see Mexican doctors, you'll see, professionals in Thailand or the Philippines. It's like it gives you an opportunity to kind of equalize people. Does that make sense?
I want to go to Africa really bad this year, just somewhat connect, I think. Like, I wouldn't really know what particular country there to go to like, feel like I belong there, but it's always been a weird thing just being, especially, like, being black in this country. That aspect of seeing people in power there, it would be, like, regular, where here it's like, holy a black president, like it's the craziest thing ever, and it's like something that has to be celebrated because it's so rare. But like to go somewhere where that's not,
where it's not
crazy, like it's just regular. I remember being in high school, like being kind of butthurt at people like that would gravitate towards just their own. I get it now because a lot of them too were like from other countries, like they weren't even like second generation, like they straight came from there, so they might not have spoke the language or didn't understand stuff. And it's like that would be the first thing I did. Even when I was in Japan, there was like 12 black people in Japan and like every time we saw another one, like it was a celebration. like hey. Yeah, it was literally like, what's up, dog? Like we knew them, and it was just because like, holy shit, it's somebody that looks like me in this place.
I'm sure, just like you, how you said that you get approached as well, I do too. And it'd always be like, Filipino ka ba? And like just out of nowhere. I could be at the grocery store or standing in line or at the gas pump and somebody come around the corner like, hey, Filipino. I'm like, I sure am. What is up, fellow?
That happened at my company party. Like in Milwaukee.
Oh, really?
They flew us to Milwaukee, and if there is one other Mexican person that I work with, I'm sorry, I don't know you. I swear I don't know any other Mexican that, like, or Hispanic person that works for that company. And I bumped into a guy's wife who was Puerto Rican, and we could just tell right away. We like gravitated to each other, like, oh, da 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 da. You know what I mean? Like, and then talking about visiting our country, her island, and my country. And like that. So it just is, it's really weird how that happens,
because it's just you understand that you guys connect on a different type of level. And this is such a stupid example, but my fake cousins, because we weren't really related, but like I said, when my parents came out here, they had friends who pretty much grew up as my titas and titos, so their kids became my fake cousins. And we would even joke about like underwear from the Philippines, because every time somebody would go, like their parents would bring us back these sew-in underwear, and like all of us would all have it. And, like,
Sew-in?
it's called Sew-in, S-O-E-N. It was a brand.
Oh.
I know people know what I'm talking about if you're Filipino, but we all identify with that. We if you get us in a room, we can all talk about, remember growing up, we all used to wear Sew-in underwear because everybody would bring that back from the Philippines.
That's such a weird thing to bring. Like, why? Is it like extra quality made from unicorn fur or something?
I don't know. We just really enjoyed it. We really enjoyed it.
I'm like, who thinks, like, you know what they need from here? Some drawers.
Because they're probably doing your laundry and shit. Like, look at these dirty ass chonies. Like, these gotta get done right now. They need more underwear.
Oh man, that's why I said it was so random. But those are the little things that only those people can relate to, because we were all experiencing that type of a thing.
I guess like from a cultural standpoint, I can relate to that, because it's just like any black comedian will just be like, you know, we do this, and it's like we all know that thing.
Exactly.
And even like me, a lot of people, back to like the thing with your high school, they're like, you're one of us. Like, I literally in high school used to call myself Token because I was that dude. And people didn't really know where I was from, because it kind of seemed like I just appeared in that suburb one day. But, like, they didn't know that I was from the South Side. And, like, that was where I grew up. And that was where all my family was from. And so there was a lot of things that, even though I lived in that suburb, I still knew. Like, somebody made a joke about, like, Kool-Aid and, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, growing up, like, drinking it and how much sugar you would put in it versus how much Kool-Aid was in it. Right. I knew that. Like, I lived that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I lived...
The ratio is very important.
Yeah. I lived with the caster iron pan that, like, you cooked everything in and never washed it. Like, that tastes like catfish and chicken at the same time. Like,
yes.
I lived that. And it was a lot of those things, just because they didn't see it, they didn't expect me to know it. I'm like, y'all don't really know me like that. And regardless of where you're from, I think there's just certain things, being black, like, even if you don't have a country to trace it back to, like, you still live that same stuff. You know, I guess, like, I have a culture to attach to. Yeah. It's just like I don't have a country to attach to. And it would be cool to have a language.
Majority of my Mexican cousins we all lived within the same town, within like 5 to 10 minutes of each other. Like, and I think it's just the whole migration aspect. Like, everybody kind of migrated to the same city and stayed there. But I had one Theo who lived in Cicero. I remember seeing my cousin Nestor when I was like 11. Time had gone by and I was like 17 or 18, and we were in Mexico, the whole family, because that's usually what it is. Like, we all go down there together, and so all of us are down there. Nestor comes down there with mi Tío Salomon, and he literally looked at me and he's like, God, because he has a deep voice, God, I'm so glad you're not white. I was like, what? He's like, I was so afraid you were just going to be really white because your mom and he's like, but you're not, you're so Mexican. And I just was like, oh my God.
I guess this is a message to my parents. Thank you for all of the hard work that you guys have done to provide a great life for me and my sisters. My mom and all of her sisters, especially my godmother, they have showed me what it is to work hard and to build a life. And so now I'm taking all of that and working hard to build a better life so I can give back to them for all the sacrifices that they've made. So thank you. I love you guys.
Okay. I love it. Poppy. We talked about this last Christmas because we were in Mexico together last Christmas, and I pretty much laid it out last Christmas, just letting him know that very grateful for the foundation that not only did you build here in the States, but also what you built for us in Mexico. He came to the States, and then 5 years later, he built a house in Mexico for my grandmother. That was in 1977, and ever since then, that house has been there, and it's a huge 7-bedroom house that has been there for our entire family to use. That's just been the foundation. So. The sacrifices you did to do that there, and then also to do everything that you've done for us while you were here. Sacrifice, 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 and now you're retired because you're a good man and you're living your life, and I'm proud of you. I love you.
Just want to say thanks to my parents too. Way to be American and from here. At the same time, you guys also gave me a really well-rounded experience in life because they worked hard to get out of the hood, and I didn't have to really grow up too bad for the most part. They put me in a place to be well-rounded and experience other people, other cultures. And I have all these friends that are from so many different walks of life, and it's given me a perspective on the world. And it's allowed me to do this show even and be able to have an open mind and talk about so many different things. I don't know if you guys know that, but I definitely give you the credit for that. And I love you. And on that note, remember to like, comment, subscribe, definitely share this. Let all our multicultural friends know that we rock with y'all and we want to eat some of your food.
All of the food. Thank you, Miranda, for being our second guest.
Yeah.
You're amazing. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we want to know all about your guys' cultures. So put it in the comments to start a conversation, and then let's have a huge party where everybody brings a dish from where they're from. The first Angel and Tony show party.
Damn.
What? Let's go.
That will be tight. All right. Let's go.
Okay,
Yay.
bye.
Thanks, guys.